I want to welcome everybody. I've heard from a few people that we were having some technical difficulties, but hopefully everybody's getting on now. I see a lot of people coming in as participants in our webinar. Thank you for being with us. I want to thank our co-hosts, Congregation Emanu-El in San Francisco and Congregation B'nai Jeshurun in Short Hills, New Jersey. Thank you so much to my dear colleagues, Rabbi Sidney Mintz and Rabbi Matthew Gewirtz. And thank you so much to Jonathan Ornstein from the JCC of Krakow for being with us at a time that is incredibly busy for you. So Jonathan, we're especially grateful to you. It's 5:30 p.m. in Krakow, and I know you've already put in another long day. We're going to learn more about some of the things that you've been up to. A lot of folks joining our webinar have spent time with Jonathan. I've had the opportunity to be with Jonathan in Poland a couple of times, and my entire family. Jonathan invited us to do their incredible ride from Auschwitz to Krakow to raise money to support the work of the JCC in Krakow, and I got the chance to do that. And Jonathan, my neck still kind of hurts from that ride, to be honest with you, but it was meaningful and well worth it. Also, I've had the chance to see Jonathan here in Los Angeles and at conferences and other places. He's an extraordinary leader. We're going to learn more about his story because I'm going to ask him about his journey from New York to Israel to Poland. But he is the founding director of the JCC. He's been there since 2008, since it opened. Most excitingly and most wonderfully, in the last few months, he and his wife Kasia welcomed their beautiful daughter Aya Mia together into this world, and we're so pleased about that, Jonathan. So thank you, everybody. There are opportunities for you to do Q&A. If you have questions, you can do questions right there in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll try to get to some of your questions. And we'll go a little less than an hour. So looking forward to this time together. Jonathan, first, before we start talking specifically about what's going on in the Ukraine and the refugee crisis in Poland and the things that you're doing at the JCC to help, please do, and I know for some folks they've heard this story, but it's really beautiful. Please do tell us the story of your journey from the United States, New York City boy, goes to Israel, makes Aliyah, serves in the IDF, and then makes it to Poland. Give us the short version of that journey.
Thank you, Rabbi. Rabbis, it's an honor to be with you and with your communities today and to be able to talk a little bit about this challenging situation we're in. So I'm, as you said, from New York City. I was about to start law school and realized that it might not be for me. I deferred law school for a year and went to a place that was much warmer than New York, Israel, and fell in love with Israel and decided to make Aliyah. So I was living on a kibbutz. I was a lone soldier on a kibbutz. And then after the army, was deciding whether to stay on the kibbutz or to go to Tel Aviv, as Israelis do. And I met a Polish woman and fell in love. And I decided to pick up and move to Poland, sight unseen, which was a strange choice. I'd never visited Poland. It wasn't so easy to fly back and forth then. So I came to Poland in 2001, and it didn't work out with her. And I fell in love with Krakow, and I stayed. And I was teaching at the university, teaching Hebrew, which was interesting to a lot of non-Jews that were very interested in Jewish studies, which was my first introduction to this strange Polish world of people finding out they're Jewish and non-Jews supporting them. So I was teaching there. And then 13, 14 years ago, at a project that was initiated by Prince Charles, they were opening a JCC here. And as I tell everyone, and that my wife tells me to stop telling people, I was the only one in the country who knew what the letters JCC stood for, and I got the job based on that.
Well, it's worked out great, and thank goodness you were the right person in the right place at the right time.
We are, as a Jewish community, world Jewish community, and in the ground here in the United States of America, so grateful to you, Jonathan, for the work that you're doing. And perhaps just with the Purim story that we read this week all over the world, I immediately thought of you and this moment. And perhaps you are there in Krakow, a place where so many of our ancestors were born and escaped, where so many Jews are feeling so much trepidation from around the world for you and your community. I thought so much of you, and I thought of this communication and this conversation that we were going to have. So we want to jump into what's been going on there for you. Tell us about the Polish response to the refugee crisis. Was this, could there be any preparation at all for you? Was it just an immediate response on the ground in Krakow? And how are people in your community responding? Give us a little bit about the sense of that.
I think the Polish response has been remarkable. One of the things that surprised me in a positive way. And for me, overall, I think the takeaway for all of this so far is, of course, the suffering, and it's difficult to be around, but the response, I think, to me, outweighs the positive of the response, outweighs to me the negative of what these people, what's happened to these people, or what's happening. Not to negate or their suffering, obviously, but it's been remarkable to see a country and a government that didn't do a very good job with the recent refugee crisis, which was Belarus on the border of Belarus, when the leader of Belarus was essentially weaponizing refugees and sending these refugees that came from the Middle East into Poland, into the EU, and the Polish government didn't want a part of that, really. So it was not a great response, and something which is still going on the Belarusian border, which we're not really focused on anymore, as this recent crisis has eclipsed it. But the Polish people have embraced the Ukrainians coming in. They've opened their hearts. They've opened their homes. It's been something absolutely phenomenal to see Ukrainian flags everywhere, restaurants that are saying, if you're Ukrainian, if you come in and eat for free. We have a community member who's a single mother, and it has a small house, certainly not a giant house, and she has 20 Ukrainians living with her. So it's been remarkable on the national level, and in terms of the desire to help. I won't say that the government has been very well prepared or doing a great job logistically or handling this. That's not the case. But certainly in terms of the desire to help, of standing with Ukraine, I think that the Polish people have done a remarkable job. It wasn't obvious that this would be the case. Poland and Ukraine have a difficult history. There's a lot of issues stemming from before World War II, and certainly World War II, and how Ukrainians treated Poles and Poles Ukrainians. So it wasn't automatic that it would be this way, but it's been an absolute heartwarming thing to be a part of and to see. And the backdrop of what we're trying to do here is a community that fully supports us, a Jewish community, and a Polish society that is fully supportive of Ukraine.
So, Jonathan, thank you so much for being here. We both share our birthplaces from New York, and living in New Jersey feels farther away than Poland in some ways. But so what do you attribute this kind of response to? Which is interesting to hear what you just said, how it's changed, why it's evolved. And the second part of the question is, it's 2 million people now, right? Is that what's come across the border? So it's a huge amount of people. What do you think the staying power is going to be in terms of when people get fatigued from all of this, and when it starts to sort of encroach upon, what life had been before this? So interested in A, the evolution, and B, what you think the staying power is going to be.
Sure. I mean, I should preface this. I guess it should be obvious to most people, but I'm not an expert in humanitarian relief. Our center has become really a humanitarian relief center, but that's not. I'm not sure I'm an expert in anything, but certainly not that. The why is tough to say. It's hard to speak on behalf why a nation is dealing with something well now when it hasn't done it so well in the past. We can't help but think of, as Jews, of a situation, in many ways, on many different levels. I think about what happened where I'm sitting 80 years ago and all around me. We're an hour's drive from Auschwitz, of course, in Krakow. And, part of me, there's one part of me that, of course, is always thinking, had the Polish people as one done all they could to save my people, the Jews, 80 years ago, then I think that a lot of the suffering of the Holocaust could have been alleviated. So, I don't know, maybe, what the reason that Poland is responding so well to this, but the world is responding well to this, isn't it? I don't think it's Poland and then the rest of the world are saying no. I'm getting phone calls. I can't keep up with phone calls and emails that are coming into me and to all of these organizations that are dealing with, and people wanting to help in any way. So I think that it's not so much in my opinion, a Polish response. I think the world is responding in a very positive way, in a positive way to this crisis, and Poland is on the front lines and is maybe exceeding expectations. But part of it is, if I had to guess, Poland is wary of Putin here, maybe there, but for the grace of God go I type situation with that's happened to Ukraine. But I think, I think that perhaps the recent history of the world and a sort of a drift toward fascism in many places and away from democracy, that maybe this is there's a loud voice of those of us who believe in liberal democracy and what it stands for, standing up to such a blatant act of aggression. We like to think that as the pendulum swings back and forth, and we in the United States certainly have seen it swing, I would say, for many of us in the wrong direction, over the last, 6, maybe, not starting right now, but 5 or 6 years ago, or even a little longer, then maybe it's swinging back, and this is the world responding with Poland as part of that. Staying power. So I've been talking to a lot of organizations that know what they're doing and are trying to advise us, which is good. World Jewish Relief, that is the organization that built the JCC, and organizations like JDC and AmeriCares and IsraAid are giving us a lot of advice as to how this looks. And there's an idea there's two things. One is that what people call the Anderson Cooper rule, which is when Anderson Cooper stops reporting from a place, people stop caring about it. And the other is an idea which is a little bit maybe more formal, of about a month. They say that people open their homes and they want to help. There's about a month that you have of this intense caring, and then people kind of go on to something else, and they find, the next thing happens, or the next tragedy and calamity around the world. I think that's a fear of ours. People are interested now, people want to help now. And we need a lot of support now, but we're going to need a lot of support, whether we're talking about the refugees, all the refugees that we're helping, Jews and non-Jews moving to the next, from the short term to the medium term to the long term, or the Jewish community, and how this will transform demographics in this part of the world for the Jewish community in Poland.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Notwithstanding the fact that this isn't why the JCC of Krakow was created, that is to, support in some sort of refugee crisis or some type of regional conflict. But, that's the position that you find yourself in. And as you were saying that, I was thinking about rabbis and teachers and nonprofit directors around the world who suddenly had to become epidemiologists, over the last 2 years. Sometimes the world puts us into leadership positions that we never would have thought about. And a lot of people have been referencing the Purim story, as we did, that, maybe it was just for this moment that you made that journey, all those years ago. And then, in fits and starts, ended up in the place you are in this beautiful community, so that you could be a partner with others in providing support. We wanted you to tell us about some of the concrete things that you're doing at the JCC of Krakow. And I know one of your colleagues, Ola, has some photographs to share of some of that work. And of course, we're also going to be reminding people of ways that they can help.
Sure. There are a lot of organizations doing a lot of things. I think most Jewish organizations are in Warsaw, so they've kind of banded together, and we're part of this Warsaw network as well that's been responding. But we're a little bit on an island in Krakow, so we've sort of built out our own system here over the last 3 weeks. So, straight away, we knew that we were going to fully focus on this. So we put a sign on, normally you walk in our building and it says "Building a Jewish Future in Krakow," and we quickly hand painted a sign which says "Welcome" in Ukrainian, and strung that across our building, and put flags up, and wanted for Ukrainians coming across the border to know, or coming into Krakow, to understand that they were welcome in our building. Ola, if you want to show that photo of the front of the building. So we're functioning in a bunch of different ways. So we're open 7 days a week, about 14, 16 hours a day, as a collection and distribution point. So that's people are bringing in clothing, hygienic supplies, toys, food, medicine. And we have about 250, maybe 300 people a day, average Ukrainians, are coming in and taking whatever they need. We're then asking them if they want to fill out a form. We help take their information, and we help them get what they need. So at this point, we are housing about 200 Ukrainians. That's in hotels and apartments that we've sourced for them. We're also providing them with food and providing them with coupons so they have something to eat. We've also hired a social worker to be in touch, a Ukrainian speaking social worker to be in touch with them and to make sure that they're being supported and whatever their needs are. We've opened a child care mother-child safe space around the corner from the JCC. We have about 25 children that are being served there, and then their mothers have a place that they can hang out, relax, receive job training or psychological support if they need it. We also opened a large info point with a few other NGOs, which is serving about 500 people a day are coming through there. 100 people are living there. We're supporting them, feeding them, and they're being given information about where they can go in somewhere else in Poland or help them in the city. We're really focused on three areas. One is Krakow, which I talked a little bit about. The second is the border, and the third is inside Ukraine. So we're working with an organization that is operating on the Ukrainian side of the border. There's a lot of help on the Polish side. It's very easy to set up a tent, and people are doing a lot on the Polish side, but we've set up, working with this partner, help them purchase tents and supplies, and we are helping on the Ukrainian side of the border, where sometimes it's a very difficult situation. People take these women, mostly women with children, 2 or 3 days, 4 days sometimes to get in difficult circumstances to the border, and then can be at the border. It's gotten a little bit better now, but when I first went there a couple of weeks ago, people were sometimes 3 days at the border, and it was snowing, it was very cold. So we helped put up tents there and make sure that there was medical supervision and people getting supplies and, a bowl of soup, some hot food at the border. Also, we're working to send supplies into Ukraine with the same organization that's on the border. So we help them, providing them with supplies, and then they go in to bringing things essentially into Lviv, not far from the Polish border, and then bring people out. So for example, the other day, we helped them with buses, to arrange buses and to pay for the gas and to get the supplies. 29 buses went in and they brought out 1,000 people at once, which was really remarkable. Also, when people cross the border, we're helping transport them wherever they need. We understand that Krakow is overrun. We have about 150,000 Krakowians, 150,000 refugees in Krakow, and a city of 750,000. You can see now from on the thing from Lviv to Krakow. So we're helping, once people cross the border, we're also helping them get wherever they need to go, buying train tickets, plane tickets for people. We got a call that there was a bus of 45 children with autism that were approaching the border and had nowhere to go. Well, they had an organization waiting to host them in Vienna. So we were able to send a couple buses over to pick them up with drivers and get them to Vienna. We're working with a local university and an Israeli NGO now to train 60 local Ukrainian/Russian speaking psychologists to be able to help deal with the trauma that we're seeing here. So working in all different ways on both sides of the border and in Krakow to alleviate suffering any way that we can. We reached thousands and thousands of people so far in all different ways.
That's amazing, Jonathan, and thank you so much for sharing that. And notwithstanding what you said at the beginning, it sounds like you are a very quick study when it comes to providing that support. And just so everyone on the call can note that the JCC still has all of its other programs and still supporting their members and Holocaust survivors and people who want to convert to Judaism, and Shabbat dinners. All those things are still going on. We put the link in the chat already, and Ryan will put it up again. There's a easy link to click if you want to make a donation through the Friends of Krakow. And Jonathan, that money can be focused directly on Ukraine, and it goes right to these efforts, correct?
Correct. So we have a 501c3. There's a dedicated one. I think we can put that up. It's also not only Friends of JCC Krakow.org, but Friends of JCC Krakow.org/Ukraine. So maybe I'll ask Ola just to put that one up, which is dedicated. It goes right to support our efforts in Ukraine. You know, it's interesting. I just wanted to say one thing, which is, you know, you said that this isn't really what we're, you know, our mission statement, but, you know, I've been thinking about that a lot, or maybe not a lot because I don't have that much time to think about it, but on the few moments that I'm able to think about these things, anything beyond what's in front of me, you know, we were set up to help a community, to revive a community that because of history was almost completely decimated and then driven underground. In this case, you know, we were set up to help Jews, but because of history that suffered. And I think that the way that we're doing it on a micro level is different, and we're helping a different population, but we're also helping people that through no fault of history have suffered. So I think that it's different in some levels, but I think on a certain way, it's really very similar to what we were always doing.
Thank you, Jonathan. I think so much about the generational PTSD that the Jewish people have suffered. And in seeing this, when we in the United States are so far away and you are literally on the ground, many people here in the United States are pointing out the similarities between this moment in World War II, whether we were alive for it or we have that sense of generational trauma, especially the need to confront Putin like the world ultimately, you know, did, but much later confronted Hitler. And so there's a lot of opinions on the ground here about what could or should or might happen there. And so I'm wondering, what have you heard from members of your community, you know, as Rabbi Zweiback just said, including Holocaust survivors who have witnessed things happening in their own lifetime on the ground, but are still there in Europe, elders in your community who remember the invasion of Poland in 1939 on the ground. How are people there reacting?
Yeah, this is it's a difficult time for them. As you would imagine, as you point out, these people have lived through one ruthless dictator that was, that was causing a lot of damage in this part of the world and upending people's lives and killing people. And this is bringing back a lot of bad memories. The name is different, and coming from the East versus the West, although Poland was also invaded from the East in World War II. So they don't even have to imagine it being very different. So yeah, what we're seeing is a difficult situation, but again, support. And I think that when you're faced with a crisis like we're seeing, people are very much in the mindset of helping others as opposed to being wildly introspective and looking at themselves. I think that the Ukrainians all want a no-fly zone. This is something that they all talk about, no-fly zone. I think that's a little complicated because what you're really talking about is essentially shooting down Russian jets over Ukraine, which is, it's hard to delicately say that good chance that will start World War III, which however terrible this is, I'm not sure that World War III is an improvement on what's happening now. So.
Yeah, that's a good segue to a question that's probably unfair to ask you, because if you're not an expert in humanitarian aid, you're probably also not an expert in political science, but here you are, you just showed us the map. You're living, hours, kilometers from the border. What's the sense of your own sense of fear, the people that you're speaking to on the ground about Poland being the next target? And if that is all is a fear that's real, what's the obligation of the world? In retrospect, you look back and we all say, Roosevelt should have bombed the tracks. And it seems so clear now, but it's probably not as clear when you're on the ground there. What is your thought? What's the fear level? And what do you think we should be doing more in terms of world response?
I think that there's, if we believe that NATO is a real thing and we take the NATO charter seriously, then an attack on any NATO member is an attack on all the NATO members. And I think that, I feel like if we're in trouble here, you're in as much trouble as we are. Because if Russia's, if we start to talk about missiles and whether that's atomic or not, then those missiles can reach anywhere in the world. And if you're Russia, you're going to be the biggest the most exciting thing for you to bomb is not going to be Krakow, so yeah, I think that if this escalates, it escalates in a way I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't see how it would escalate only into Poland. I think it escalates into NATO, in which case we're all in a lot of trouble, or it doesn't escalate past the borders. That's the rational part of me talking. But yeah, of course, it's different when you're, tomorrow I'll be at the border and there are, missiles and, rockets have been fired right near there. So, you do think about that a little bit. So, yeah, no, there's a palpable, I don't know, fear. I don't think people are generally feeling that Russia is going to invade, maybe even a little bit more at the beginning, just because everybody thought, oh, Russia's going to steamroll right through Ukraine and we're next. But it seems like Russia is very much bogged down in Ukraine. So I don't know that they're feeling, much motivation, especially the soldiers there don't seem to be very motivated in what they're doing. Since this war is being sold to the Russian people under complete false pretenses, that I don't know about an invasion of Poland is happening anytime soon.
Just a quick follow-up on that, Jonathan. What kinds of preparations are you seeing in Krakow to, in God forbid, this scenario in which there's an errant missile and NATO gets pulled in? Are you already seeing, messaging from the government about, putting supplies away or finding a bomb shelter nearby?
Not at all. Not at all. I mean, we're 150 miles from the border here. So I think that, plus these days in the world, you're really talking about guided missiles, pinpoint, theoretically, armaments, right? It's not just carpet bombing. So I don't know. Nobody's talking about that here or thinking about that, or it's not like real estate prices are plummeting. And I mean, the zloty is kind of collapsed a little bit, but that's a little bit different macroeconomic. So it's not as if there is a real fear here that's going to happen. You go to the supermarkets and now you can buy stuff. In the beginning, everything was being bought for Ukraine to send into Ukraine. So a lot of these products, supplies that people are doing. But now I don't think there's any feeling of that. I think there's a feeling of, wow, Russia bit off more than it can chew. And Putin, what is a face-saving way for Putin to extricate himself from this colossal blunder?
Sid, you're still on mute, Sid.
Yes, Yoshi. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well,
I thought that was a soft handoff to you, but
I have a follow up on that, Jonathan. In terms of the obligation that you feel as a Jew in this conversation, it's interesting because you think about 80 years ago, and Krakow being just 1 hour from Auschwitz by car. When we did the bike ride, it took significantly more than 1 hour, but you can do it. You could do it in half a day, and you can walk it. And we know stories of that as well. And so, you might ask the question, like, what obligation do Jews have to be involved in this work when so many, not everyone, but so many turned away, and so many who could have saved us didn't? Tell us a little bit about, in terms of your own Jewish identity, in terms of your own Jewish journey, how that works.
I think the fact that more people didn't help us throughout our history is more of a reason for us to help others. The answer to people who didn't respond, the answer to a broken, imperfect world is not to continue to make sure that the fissures are larger. We don't continue creating cracks. We try to heal those cracks and try to fill them in. So to me, there's not even any question about the response, that we as Jewish people need to respond, and we need to not only care about Jews. And I get calls, I got a call today, literally, I was with the group, and I got a call from somebody who said, hello, I don't, this rabbi gave me your name, and I'm here in Krakow, I have a few $1,000s, and I want to, will it go to Jews? I said, oh, well, we're helping Jews and non-Jews. And he goes, well, I want this to go to Jews. And I said, no, that's not That's not who we are. I'm sure there are other organizations that are only focused on Jews, but we're trying to help everybody. And I think that that's not a good fit, and that you shouldn't give it to us, which probably the first time, as somebody whose organization is completely dependent on donations, might be the first time, and hopefully the last time I ever have to say, no, don't give us money. No, but at the end of the day, there are Jews that are in need, and we're helping Jews, and there are a lot of organizations focusing on that. But what I see is a world where, because of our history that we all understand the reasons for it, we've developed certain networks and a certain way to care for each other as a people that others don't have. Right? Ukrainians around the world aren't as connected as the Jews. They don't have this thing. They don't have the ability to do what we're able to do. And I think that this is one of those times, at the end of the day, if the values of being Jewish to me mean that we have, let's say, a special responsibility to try to repair the world. And this is one of those times that it needs repairing, and we need to step up and do what we can.
Thank you, Jonathan. That, you bring up that difference so eloquently about the connectedness, that this web that we have as Jews around the world. And you certainly have the unique perspective, but also the unique experiences you shared with us is you served in the IDF in a combat unit. We wonder, in terms of the media and what we're seeing, what your sense is of the Ukrainian strategy on the ground. We're reading a lot about the failures of Putin's strategy, and what is your sense from, we saw that map, and for, anybody who's looking at Google Maps and looking at, it's a 4-hour drive, what it's like from your vantage point, looking right across the border on the ground.
I think when we look at, it's like looking at the military things. I think it's like looking at some things that we don't always look at in terms of sports, something that we're more used to handicapping on a daily basis, right? Oh, this team is better than that team, but it's all about motivation. How is Israel able to, why is Israel still there? Because Israel's motivation in these wars that it's fought has been very different than the countries and the people that it was fighting wars with. Russia vastly underestimated, Putin vastly underestimated the motivation of the Ukrainian people to defend their homeland. And they've been fighting in a way, and there's a inequality of motivation. The Russian soldiers are, these are brothers. They're ethnically connected. They all have relatives from one and the other country, and this idea of the war being that Russia having superior firepower and in every sense, of course, is true. But on the ground, the person, the soldier who is more motivated, who wants it more, is at an advantage. And Ukraine has a huge advantage in this sense, because these Russian, young Russian soldiers are been fed lies, and they're being told that their brothers in Ukraine are all Nazis. And then they see a Jewish president get up and address them, and the whole thing starts to look a little strange. And I think a good part of them just want to go home and didn't want any part of this. But Ukraine is this. And I think the other mistake was that they thought the way that it happened in Donbass, in the region in the east, that Ukraine sort of let go, that was mostly Russian to begin with, and what happened with Crimea. This isn't Crimea, and I think Putin thought that it was going to be similar, and it's not similar. They will, they're not Kiev. If they want to continue fighting Kiev, it's going to be, block by block, house by house, meter by meter to fight there. And when you're defending your own home, you're at a massive, massive advantage.
Jonathan, we want to start taking some questions from our respective congregations. I think that this member somehow, Seth Ledetsky, is that someone you know?
I do know Seth very well from summer camp.
That's what I thought. I thought as well. So Seth is a phenomenal human being and a member of our board, has been just a great leader. So this question's from him, from your old buddy from summer camp, says that, with all these refugees that are heading to Israel, and perhaps, I've already had 10 or 15 different families say, we have a room in our house, we're ready to host. That's all well and good. What do you think that means for the future of Ukrainian and even Russian Jewry?
That all,
the immigration piece.
Right. So you have two countries. One, Russia, that the economy's completely collapsed. The Jews realize that when you have difficult situations like this, it's never very safe to be Jewish. Right. We need to also be worried, to some degree, about the Jews of Ukraine, Jews of Russia. Listen, this is the history of our people. Nobody on this calls, I'm going to guess, nobody on this calls ancestors 150 years ago were where they're sitting on that call. Our strength as a people is that we're mobile. And it would be sad for the Ukrainian communities that have built up and have been there for a long time to now, move on somewhere else. But this is who we are as a people. We move. Our strength is that we're not as tied to place as others are. So I think you're going to see a massive demographic shift. We already had it underway with 1.5 million Ukrainians living in Poland before the war. Before over the last 7-8 years before this happened, you had a large shift of Ukrainians coming here to Poland. So 25% of our Hillel, of our young students, were already Ukrainian before this. And these Ukrainians that the Jewish Agency is now bringing to Israel, if we kind of take a step back, we realize that they've had 32 years that they could make Aliyah. These aren't people that were dying to go to Israel. I think the numbers of Aliyah to Israel were a few hundred a year out of a population of 200,000, at least, Jews. So these are the people that didn't want to go to Israel. Maybe now they're going because there's a war. But I think that you're going to see a lot of Jews staying here in Poland. And we've thought for a long time in Poland that we could have a situation like Germany. So what does the German Jewish situation look like? It's over 90% of the Jews in Germany today are from the former Soviet Union that were given refuge, that were given citizenship by Germany because of the history. So you go to Germany, you don't meet German Jews that are actually German Jews here and there, but the vast majority are not German. And I think that we've thought that this could be the future of the Polish Jewish community, as we have a small but growing community. And then to our east are 200,000 Jews in Ukraine, and then another large amount of Jews in Russia, that this would, especially from Ukraine, would be the future of our community, a possible outcome, a potential outcome for our community. What we didn't think that it was going to happen so fast because of a war breaking out like this.
Thank you, Jonathan. Really appreciate that perspective. I want to one quick question about the bike ride from one of our participants. They're planning on being on the bike ride this summer from Auschwitz to Krakow, and the plans are that that's still on, correct?
Bike ride is still on. We're going to focus this year also not only on our community, but we're going to also use the bike ride to help the refugees. And I'm announcing it here first, which is that the bike ride is 60 miles, as Yoshi remembers very well, from Auschwitz to the JCC. But we're going to also have some strong riders, very strong riders, which are going to start from the Ukrainian border at the same time, and will meet us in Krakow at the JCC. So we'll have people leaving Auschwitz, people leaving the Ukrainian border, and meeting at the JCC.
And Matthew, by the way, has been doing these endurance walks. So Matthew is going to walk from Manhattan, Short Hills, New Jersey. He's going to make the trip. So we have that. I know Sid has one more question, and then we're going to ask you to leave us with a little bit of hope, and we'll make sure that. Oh yeah, Sid's going to swim. She can do that from San Francisco, and then we'll put up again in the chat the link to specifically how you can support the JCC's efforts in refugee relief. But Sid, please go ahead.
This is something that people have asked me, and I'm all of the rabbis in the United States, in some ways, to be a prophet, an oracle, which we can't be because we don't know the future, and I don't want to put you in that position either. But I'd like to know, as we see some of our colleagues going, being flown in with aid, staying in hotels, shining a light back on what's happening. We know this is going to go on for a long time, and that the resources can't be blown up and used right away. It's going to be something that is, your community, the Ukrainian community, all of the countries that are absorbing refugees are going to need a lot of help. What do you think between right now, whenever that is, when we need more help, what's the best way for people besides money to show their support of what's going on?
Besides money, I would say money, possibly after that money. And then, no, I'm getting in trouble. No, I mean, that's the primary need. So we're spending something like $10,000 a day housing people. So, I mean, that's, and we're a tiny little JCC. So that's, that's a lot. But luckily the world is being supportive, but the needs are great. In terms of coming here, because that's the thing, people, a lot of people want to volunteer. If you have specific skills, then maybe that's something that we could use. If you speak Russian or Ukrainian, if you have emergency humanitarian, you were working for, a humanitarian aid organization and can help us in that sense. Or if you're going to come here and then, go back and be able to share that with a lot of people. If you're part of a network and you can say, oh, I'm going to go there and I'm going to see it for myself. I'm going to go back and tell all these people that I'm connected to, and they're going to then get involved and give support, then fine. But what we really don't need is just people coming here to help, unpack things. We have, not that it's not a beautiful thing to want to do, but we have that. And then people, of course, by coming here, you're using some of the resources and the capacity that we have to take care of people. People are sending things. We're going to rent. People are bringing things and sending things. We are trying to ramp up our capacity to be able to receive things. So we're going to rent a warehouse, try to find a warehouse to be able to take care. Again, our building is, some of you will remember, very, very tiny. So we have to figure that out. So I think that the best way is to get involved and to try to, to help us, help another organization that's doing things. There are a lot of organizations out there doing good, and we're one of them on the ground, being able to do that. Yeah, I mean, that's really the best way. And then we'll see. And I would say that don't get bored with this and don't give up on this just because it's going to eventually, hopefully, get off the news. 6 months from now, we're going to need different help. And it might not be housing people. It might be trying to teach these people, which we're doing already, but teach them Polish or help them with job training and all of these things, help with in a long-term sense, provide stipends for them so their kids can come to preschool and go to and help them with all the needs that these people that are coming from Ukraine are going to have, as we, I think, eventually will hopefully transition back from being now an emergency services provider back into a Jewish community center for what will certainly be a greatly expanded Jewish community.
Thank you, Jonathan. We're going to start to wrap up. I want to remind everybody about next week's program that Congregation B'nai Jeshurun and Congregation Emanu-El are co-sponsoring with Stephen Wise Temple. We're going to be talking to people from United Hatzalah, an Israeli-based organization that provides emergency medical relief and support. We're going to learn about some of the things that they're doing in Moldova. So that's next week, exact same time, 9:30 West Coast, 1:30, 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, 12:30 East Coast time. So that'll be next Monday. And Ryan is going to put in the chat the link to register for that if you haven't already been signed up. These are recorded and then they're going to live on our website. So you should be able to go to any of the congregations. It's right now up on the Stephen Wise website as well. So you can share that with other folks. I wanted to, Jonathan, I'm going to ask one more question. And as you answer, I wanted to invite your colleague Ola, if there's any more photos she wanted to put up while you're talking, we'll be able to see the photo and also your face. But we often talk about in Jewish tradition that we like to end with an echemta, something that can give us a little bit of comfort. And I'm certainly comforted knowing that you're on the ground. I know the work that you do, and I know the community a little bit, having visited twice now. And I've seen the incredible resilience of your volunteers. And I also know a lot of the people around the world who are your supporters. And so I have great faith in what you're doing. But I'd love to hear some of the things in the midst of all of this challenge. I mentioned your new baby daughter at the beginning. Here you are, a father of this infant, and you're witnessing all of this. What gives you hope? What makes you feel like there is a sense of tikva, even in the midst of all of the destruction that we're seeing?
So maybe I'll answer that. I'll ask Ola, can you put up a photo of Natalia? There was a story that was a very sweet story that I think Ola maybe has the first photo of Natalia. Oh, and those both photos together. Okay.
Also, my daughter's name, Jonathan, is Natalia, so I love it.
Oh, wow. Ola, is that showing? I'm not sure we're able to see. Okay, well, if we're not able to.
I share the screen of Natalia. I don't know if you can see it now.
Does everyone see it? I don't see it. I see all the photos.
Yeah, no, all we're seeing.
Okay, I will restart. Sorry for that. Give me a sec.
Okay, if you're able to see that, just because it's a nice, cute little story. If we can see that, there we go. So this, she came into, this is Natalia. She came into the JCC with her mom. They had just come into Krakow, and while her mom was getting supplies, we had a little hobby horse, rocking horse, that she was very excited to be able to play with. And her mom, she told us that they were going to be in Krakow for a while, and we invited her to come to our preschool, Frida, which means happiness and joy in Polish. And then we found out, she tells us, and this is in the afternoon, that the next day was her birthday. So we made it, we told the teachers, and they did what they could to. Yeah, then you see that she spent the next day. It was just nice timing that she came in, and then the next day was her birthday, and we kind of knit, and that's why you see the strange looking cake, because we didn't have time to order a kosher cake. So the preschool things are kosher. So you see these like sort of, I don't even know, macaroon type cookies with apple about it. But anyway, she had spent the next day, the next day. And there were other photos that I guess we didn't queue up, which are all the kids hugging her and just giving her this really wonderful birthday, and she got a lot of presents and everything. So I think the takeaway for me for all of this is that, you know, when I look back at this years from now, I won't think about Putin so much, and I won't think about what he's done to these people. I will think of the absolute beautiful response of the world and the Polish people and our community. And you know, people talk about, oh, you should help, or oh, it's a responsibility to help. And I always thought it was a responsibility to help. And now these last 3 weeks have taught me something different. It's a privilege to help. You should be honored and understand that what a position, honored to be in the position that you're not the one at this point that needs help, because our history has been a lot of needing help. And we shouldn't only see it as a responsibility. Yeah, I'm Jewish, this is what we do, or oh, I can write a check and be involved. It's a privilege. It's something you're being given. It's a gift that we're given, that we're being able to help. And these are the situations that allow us to see that and make that, should make that crystal clear for us. And to me, I've never felt more Jewish and never been more proud to be part of a Jewish organization than during these last 3 weeks.
Jonathan, thank you so much. On behalf of my colleagues, Rabbi Mintz and Rabbi Gewirtz and our congregations, we're grateful to you. As I said at the beginning, I know that this is the end of a long day for you, lots of long days.
Yeah,
and you've got your beautiful wife and daughter to get back to. But we're really grateful to you for carving out time for us. And we'll keep letting our congregations know ways that we can provide support from afar. Certainly, as you said, making donations allows you to do the work that you're doing. As you said, you know, $10,000 a day being spent just housing folks, and the needs are going to continue. So the worldwide Jewish community and other good-hearted people around the world hopefully are going to continue to provide that support to you, Jonathan. We're so thankful to all of you for joining us. And I put the link in there to sign up for next week's webinar, Monday, 9:30 Pacific, 12:30 Eastern. Please do join in. And I'll just wish everybody a wonderful week filled with meaningful work. And we hope stories of resilience and tikva coming out of places like Poland and Ukraine. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.